from a galaxy far, far away.
And a bookshelf straight out of the 90s.
From Thrawn to Dantooine
And everything in between. This is Legends Look Back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legends Look Back, a show brought to you by Youtini.com, a show for people who love Star Wars books about as much as they love Johnny Tsunami, where we talk about all things Legends, celebrating our rich EU history, as well as diving into lesser-known Star Wars classics. I'm your host, Jared Mays, and today I'm joined, once again, by the amazing Freddy C. How's it going, man?
Hey, Pono!
Pono, yeah. My wife got really agitated with me when I said Pono about 100 times too many after we watched that.
That's funny, man. That was a really good intro, I gotta say. I gotta hand you that one for sure.
I've been binging the Disney Channel original movies with my 6-year-old.
Nice.
We're like in 1999 at this point, I think. It's been a wild ride. Tell you what, some of those movies are great. Some of them are terrible. Absolutely atrocious. Also joining us this week, who I forgot to introduce last week, F's in the chat for the fact that I forgot to introduce Meg on the show last week. Hey, if Meg wasn't here, there wouldn't be a show. We'll just put it that way. Once again, we are joined by our amazing savior of the podcast, our producer, Meg Dowell. How are you, Meg?
I am fantastic.
Oh, man. Yeah, I actually put an apology here in the show notes that I forgot to introduce her last week, and she gave me not one, but 2 smiley faces. If I ever do it again, she said there would be 2 lightsabers that are going to just spiral through the air and take me out like Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine. And Meg actually deserves quite a bit of praise for some Legends Look Back social media goings-on this week. A really fun thing happened, and I gotta say, all right, now the process by which we choose books on Legends Look Back is very haphazard, in case you haven't been able to tell by the fact that we've covered, Truce at Bakura, Jedi Prince, Dark Empire, Tales of the Jedi, we did the Thrawn trilogy, did the whole trilogy. When it comes to the X-Wing books, we've done 2 of them. Why 2? Because, hey, we're still figuring this out. How are you going to cover a 10-book series without, tuning out everybody that hasn't read those yet? Anyway, it's a little bit haphazard how we choose books. We try to use this system where we do an Old Republic book, a New Republic book, and then just something wacky and weird. But then what do you do when you get the series? And then sometimes we do episodes that are not book roundtables. Okay, we're still figuring out all of that. All that is to say, it was by pure will of the Force that we ended up covering the Knights of the Old Republic comics right when it was having its 15th anniversary. Isn't that amazing, Freddie? It just
crazy.
That was unplanned. We're covering these books simply because I was reading them. I think I wrote the Mandalorian reading collection last fall, maybe last summer for Youtini, and I got to these books and I was like, oh, this has a lot of Mandalorian stuff. I should probably read these. And then I was like, well, if I'm reading these, we're definitely gonna have to talk about them on the podcast because that's my life now. Isn't that crazy, Freddie? The fact that it was 15-year anniversary just by happenstance.
Yeah, that's serendipity if I've ever seen it myself.
I'm not sure what that word means, but I'm going to take it as a good thing. So John Jackson Miller was doing a Reddit AMA, Ask Me Absolutely Anything, except for the 2 questions that he told people not to ask in the very beginning post. And Meg, as a champion, over her lunch break, what day was that? Earlier this week. Monday? Tuesday?
Monday.
She actually scrolled through all of that into I would call it the Wild West, but it's really a hive of scum and villainy. The Star Wars EU Reddit. Absolute hive of scum and villainy. Meg, as a champion, was able to curate some questions for us, some of the good juicy bits, and put them up on our Legends Look Back Twitter, which is new. If you didn't know it existed, it does now, and it's got awesome content like this. You don't even have to go into the hive of scum and villainy, which is Reddit. You can just go right to our Legends Look Back Twitter. Meg, would you care to share some of the fun stuff that you found from the Reddit rabbit hole that you went on earlier this week?
Yeah. Yep. Just a minute.
I've got a few highlights here in the show notes. I'll get us started with 2 that you didn't tweet. Now, I found these myself and found them absolutely fascinating. The first of them, did you see this one, Freddie? Somebody asked him, what's your relationship with the video games? Obviously, you're using some of the KOTOR characters in these books. How many times have you played through the games? Do you love these games as much as we do? I can just feel a rabid fan in their basement asking John Jackson Miller this question, and he says, sadly, I've played through Terrace 10 or 15 times, but have never made it past Dantooine. And I found that the best answer possible. Like, what kind of Star Wars writer is going to make it all the way through KOTOR? You know what I mean?
I like the second one, actually. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so John Jackson Miller was actually planning a Griff and Mumo Brothers microseries featuring Calo Nord as the villain.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Calo Nord, of course, if you haven't played the games, is this... Google him, he's pretty cool. Not Kylo. Calo, C-A-L-O. C-A-L-O. Calo Nord is like this bounty hunter, wears like one of those Russian hats, you know, the ones that keep your ears warm, the one that Bernie Sanders is going to wear at the next inauguration, just for pure warmth and comfort. He's wearing one of these that... sets him off as this pretty iconic villain. He's always doing this thing where whenever he gets agitated, he says he just starts counting down from like 3 to 1, and it's like by the time that clock runs out, he's gonna blow up the thermal detonator or something. Yeah, he's gonna do like a Griff and Mumo Brothers micro series that never came to fruition, but he was in talks for. I would love to see that. I wonder if he's written it secretly and just never released it. Meg, do you have the other ones pulled up yet? Okay, so these were some that she had tweeted out earlier this week. You want to do the honors, Meg?
So, if I remember right, the context of this one, someone was asking what he thought happened to Zane after the series ended, and he kind of said that he might reveal something later in the year.
It was a big tease.
What?
This is the big one.
Yeah, he was like, I've got ideas, and I think I'll tell you, just not today, but soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't expecting like any like reveals or anything, but like, or teases either, so that's cool.
Right. Yeah, hey, Legends news is few and far between. We're mostly an outdated, irrelevant universe, and so it's always fun when we get some new information coming our way. I did find that exciting. Of course, this new omnibus, 1,344 pages, is being released this spring. And I think he was saving some more of the behind the scenes for when that came out. He said he doesn't typically like to talk about stories that he hasn't told yet. Tried to set these stories in a very contained period of time. However, there's still a lot of story left to be told with Zane and his crewmates. And so basically left himself the possibility to tell more stories, but also acknowledged the fact that, hey, we're not exactly telling very many more Legends stories. And so said, might just reveal more of what I had in mind for Zane and these characters. Meg, what's next?
Yeah, and kind of on that same note, someone had asked if he were to write, if there were to be more Legends, or if he were to write more Legends, who he'd want to write about or what characters he'd want to focus on, and he's a Zane fan apparently, because that's kind of what his answer was.
Like out of any Star Wars story ever.
Yeah. So he said that he's pretty young and there's a lot of potential story left to tell. So theoretically,
yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, he's written Kenobi, for crying out loud. It's widely regarded one of the top 5 Star Wars books ever written, Legends or canon, and I agree. And yet he's still especially fond of this goofy, wacky series that he wrote. I think it's for the fact that he spent more time writing this than he has anything else in Star Wars. I mean, it ran from, what 6 years?
It was 6 years, 56 issues, 50
depending on how we slice it, Freddy. We did the math last week. We're not going down this equation. We're not doing math 2 weeks in a row. But yeah, 56-ish, depending on how we count. And then finally, this one was probably my favorite answer out of anything that he posted. Do you have this one, Meg, about the fanfic?
I don't have a screenshot of that one.
Okay. But Meg, you probably know more about this than I did because you actually read it. He basically said that he wrote some Knights of the Old Republic fanfic that he has not released, at least not publicly. He doesn't know what to do with. Fans were trying to give him advice about how to be a good fanfic writer. I found this hilarious to a New York Times bestselling author. They were giving him advice on how to write fanfic and how to release it safely to the world. And he was like, thanks for that advice. Always in motion is the future.
Leave it to Reddit to try
fish
Tell
that
us how
out
to
of
do
a
something.
legendary author. Is that about Cover It, Meg?
Yeah, those are some pretty good highlights.
You know, he talked about all kinds of other content that he's written, a lot of stuff about Knight Errant, a lot of stuff about Kenobi. I've talked a little Star Trek. As soon as I saw Star Trek, I just slammed my computer and threw it out the window because I didn't care about that. But you know what I'm not going to throw out the window? This series, Knights of the Old Republic. Tonight we're going to be talking about some of our favorite art from the series. We're going to talk about connections to the video games, favorite Easter eggs. We're talking about the Mandalorian Wars. Mandalorians, they're especially hot lately for some unknown reason. Favorite story arc, world building, all kinds of fun, juicy tidbits. Ooh, I have said juicy tidbits a lot so far in this episode. Tell my editor to edit those out. So, Freddy, you notoriously are big into the cover art. You love some cover art. Now, I actually have found that the fact that the cover art differs pretty wildly from what's actually happening in the books. I felt like it deserved its own category, don't you think? So we're going to talk about our favorite cover art versus our favorite panel of art from within the series. Now, if you're playing along at home, obviously you can't post the pics right there in the Twitch chat, or if you're watching this later or listening later, that's fine. Hey, join our Legends Look Back Discord channel and throw up a pic of your favorite KOTOR cover art or interior panel art, and you can also see ours. We'll try to post those over in the Discord as well, as long as we remember. I'll tell my producer to get on that. Tell my assistant. Freddy, what's your favorite cover art from within the series?
Yeah, so there's a couple.
I think Meg
that
has these queued up.
Yeah, Meg has these queued up. There's a couple that I like a lot, and one of them is when Zane is captured on, I forget the planet's name, but there's a ton of rat ghouls everywhere because they, what's his name? It's not Demigol. It's the other, his
There's a lot of
assistant.
villains in this series.
There's so many villains, so many different planets. That's what I love about it. There's so many different characters and beings, but there's rat ghouls everywhere. I don't know, Meg, if you have that. Yes, that one right there.
I didn't even realize. I looked at this earlier. I didn't realize those were rat ghouls. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not my favorite series with art internally, but cover art, I like this one a lot. This is super cool.
Yeah, I really love the rat ghoul plot line because he tried to make them more dangerous than they were in the video game, and he actually has joked about the fact, for some reason my head is spiraling here. If you're listening on audio, move along, no worries, I'll try to move. He in the series he comments on the fact that in the video games in Knights of the Old Republic you just hack and slash your lightsaber on, or I don't guess you've got a lightsaber, just like a big vibro sword. You just hack and slash at these rat ghouls, and they just keep coming at you. Smack, smack, smack. They just keep coming. But then, as soon as you close the door, they're powerless. They're like, oh, it's a closed door. Nothing I can do about that. And so, he said in this series, he tried to make them a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Troublesome, powerful, scary, formidable. There we go.
Formidable, yeah. They were more like zombies than anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. They're not the smartest, but they're still difficult to destroy.
So he's showing off the cover from issue 27. Mine is issue 47. This comes from later in the series. Now, I've got to admit, I struggled with this because a lot of the cover art in this series actually has word bubbles on it. And I didn't realize how much I hated word bubbles on cover art until I was trying to pick my favorite cover art for this series and was being driven absolutely bonkers by the fact that I was having trouble finding some without the word bubbles. What do you think about that, Freddie? What's your opinion? Word bubbles or no word bubbles on your covers?
Well, the funny thing about some of the word bubbles for Knights of the Old Republic is it's very serial-esque. They're kind of cheesy in today's standards, right?
He's definitely playing for like that old school Marvel vibe.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to agree with you. When I get cover art for my comics, I just like plain cover art. I don't like to see all this text everywhere. I don't mind this one. Mandalore's mad, scientist on trial.
For our audio listeners, this is issue 47. It's got Malik without the bottom half of the face covered like he has in the video game. This is young Malik. He's definitely going down that dark path, but he's not all the way there yet. And he's got like a vibro knife up to the throat of a Mandalorian. I think it's actually either Dimagal or Roland Dyer. It gets dicey in the series. It's not always easy to know who's who. It's very complicated. It's a whole plot point. We won't spoil it here. But very striking to just have Malik with his fingertips are up under the visor of this Mandalorian. It's very striking, and it's not my favorite because I'm like, oh yeah, I love that, as much as it's very iconic. I think it rivaled for me an earlier issue where it's just lightsabers clashing, Zane versus his master Lucian Dre. I really like the way just the two characters going at it, very bold. Freddy chose one with like 1,000 rackles. I've got a cover with two characters. No more, no less. How about the interior panel? Did you have a favorite, Freddy?
Yeah, I did actually. There's again, I'm gonna break the rules because that's what I seem to do all the time.
You do, yeah. Your appearance on the Living Force, one of the first episodes, they said, "What's your favorite canon book?" And you said, "Darth Plagueis." And they doubled down on it. They were like, "No, Freddy, choose your favorite canon book." And you said, "Nope, Darth Plagueis."
Exactly.
I think about that literally every day.
That's so cool.
All right, your favorite interior art.
Yeah, so there's a couple that I like for the art, and there's one that I like for the just the phrase or whatever they're saying. But the moment where you're seeing all of them die, they have that vision at the very beginning with the cabal of Jedis, just trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future. And I really like this because as you go back, first of all, the amount of information that is in these few panels, or I should say they're really pages at this point, but the amount of information is pretty large. But
is this a full page spread, like a 2-page spread?
I think it's either a 2-page or it's a half-page. I can't remember exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's a lot of info there, and it's fun to see their story happen, and you kind of go back and see what they were seeing, right, and how they died, etc.
Oh man, that Force vision where you kind of have Zane discovering why these villains are villains and what exactly they've seen in the future. Whereas we as Star Wars fans, we know who Vader is. We know what's going to happen in the video games. We know what's going to happen with the outcome of this massive war that they're in the midst of. But they don't. And so it's actually really fun to get like a Vader cameo or a Revan Malik cameo, and you're like, oh my goodness, all this stuff's going to happen. And they're just the Jedi Covenant, they're trying to prevent it from happening. And we're like, sorry, bro, it's coming for you, and there's nothing you can do, and you're barking up the wrong tree trying to take out Zane. He's a pure golden boy. There's nothing you can do to take him down the dark path. And this is a really trippy art panel you've got here, Freddy. I've got a very different choice. Did you have two? I think I had seen that you had two.
Yeah, there's it's the other scene. It's with the rest of the characters.
Okay,
where you see their demise.
Oh man, that is incredible. I like that a lot. Yeah, and like we mentioned 2 episodes ago, it's really fun the way the series does go through kind of one by one with the members of the Jedi Covenant, and it takes you through their backstory and their involvement and their own personalities and their own crazy evil plans and how Zane accidentally upends them due to his good luck / bad luck, depending on how you look at it. Force power, according to the Wook. It's one of Zane's force powers. It's like the good luck force power.
The balance.
Yeah. All right. So mine are actually quite different than yours. Yours are kind of like metaphysical. They're causing me to get introspective and think about my choices. Mine is more of one of these early spreads. In fact, John Jackson Miller says he got in trouble with his editors for just how much effort he made the artist put in on this 2-page spread. They said no more 2-page art spreads for a while because it slowed down the production of this issue so much. It comes from the Flashpoint storyline pretty early in the series. Could be around issue 7. I'm not 100% sure that's right. But let's just say that I'm right for the heck of it. It's where they're on this planet. It's one of my favorite stories in the whole series. You remember this one, Freddy? They stage a heist pretending to be Mandalorians invading. Only while in the middle of their heist do the Mandalorians actually invade.
It's so cool.
It's amazing. And so this is the Dustin Weaver art of the Mandalorian war showing up on this planet, and Griff is shouting at the top of his lungs here, and the only word bubble on this entire 2-page spread, the Mandalorians are attacking for real. I kind of hear him in Oh, who's that like villain in a lot of movies? Not Joe DiMaggio. Who am I thinking of? He's in. Oh, he's the Penguin from Batman. What's his name?
Oh,
I'm so close.
oh my gosh.
Tip of my
man.
tongue. I'll fix this in
Hold on.
post.
Come on, Skooma Joe. Somebody from the chat.
Yeah, leave it up to
throw
Twitch.
us.
To, I hear Danny DeVito. Yeah,
Danny
everybody
DeVito,
says it at
yeah.
once. I hear Griff in a Danny DeVito voice the whole way through in this series. I'm not sure if my impression actually captured it or not. We'll say that it did for the sake of argument, but yeah, it's a great storyline. It's where we're actually introduced to Roland Dyer as well, so really cool for that reason. I also realized that I've been pronouncing, I said Jeriel. We went in a long conversation this week about how to pronounce her name, Zane's love interest, right? And so apparently, according to Skooma Joe, John Jackson Miller has gone on the record in saying that it's Jerael. Jerael. I was saying Jeriel, like the mermaid, you know? Everybody chimed in with their own pronunciation, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fix it. If I say it wrong this episode, it's not my fault. It's cemented in my brain at this point. I'm going to be 30 this year. There's no fixing it. Once you've committed something to memory at this point in your life, it's going to stay there. I think I've got another one pulled up, right, Meg? This one is absolutely iconic considering what we're going through right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not sure you can read this text or not. For our audio listeners, this is a picture of, maybe a cathar. I'm not totally sure the species. If you're looking at the image, it's just a cat person in Mandalorian armor, bright red, like candy apple red Mandalorian armor. It's got like a machine gun. I'm not sure exactly the model number. Andrew could probably tell us. And he's just ripping and unloading on other Mandalorians. It's just like rip, rip, like animated cartoon machine gun noises. And I kid you not, I read this the other day. This is from the KOTOR War series, and I laughed out loud so hard I think I fell out of my chair when I read this word balloon. So, once again, big cat guy, bright red Mandalorian armor, shooting machine gun at other Mandalorians, saying this, I kid you not, "Quarantine this, Republic!" I thought,
So
like,
good,
oh,
man.
this guy's totally an anti-masker for sure.
This guy's feeling it.
Quarantine this. I just
Rip.
I was going around like my office. I just started pacing. I was laughing so hard, thinking like, I've got to make sure this gets on the podcast. So if you're listening on audio, we'll post it in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. Meg, let me ask you this: you've now seen 2 pieces of cover art and 4 interior arts. Which one's your favorite? And everybody in the chat, feel free to answer as well. Out of Freddy's 2 picks and my picks, who wins? Who's got the best interior art picks?
I
here?
mean, based on what just happened here, it has to be this one.
I'm not saying like it's necessarily the critically best art from like a Thrawn art critic perspective, but I am saying, considering like, hey, he did not anticipate this pandemic when he wrote this thing. It's just so perfect to say quarantine this, and he unloads on these other Mandalorians, which is pretty cool. Actually, that character has a pretty cool story arc within the KOTOR War series, so there's the tease. You could pick that one up. Okay, Freddy, we talked about the art, but let's talk about the way that this ties into the video games, because let's be honest, there are a lot more people in our chat who have actually played the video games than have read these comics. So if you are wanting to pick up this series because you are a KOTOR video game fan, because you wore out your massive Xbox controller back in 2003. Did you have one of those massive Xbox controllers, Freddie? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The ones that took up like a whole room in your house?
A whole room in my house, exactly. My bedroom, aka the controller storage room. Yeah.
There you go. If you are a fan of that, how does this series tie in? Obviously, it tied in a lot less than I expected when I picked it up. It's called Knights of the Old Republic. I expected it to be a whole lot more Revan heavy than it was. So, Freddie, in your opinion, how does it enrich the KOTOR games? If you're picking this up as a KOTOR video game fan, does it pay off enough?
Yeah, it really does. There's one thing that John Jackson Miller does with his stories, and he builds worlds, he builds characters, and he enriches his own stories by giving himself the room to do whatever he really needs to, right? Creatively needs to. And in my opinion, these comics help KOTOR, the video game, so much, because not only are you more invested in the world surrounding the video game, right? Because there's more than just what's going on. There's so many different roads that KOTOR is going down. You've got Malik's story, you've got Revan's story, and then you've got the story of all these characters who are just floating around in the world of KOTOR, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I like is he builds upon characters that you know already. He builds stories for them pre whatever before Revan becomes Revan, right? He's Revan Kist or Revan Chist?
I'm not sure how he pronounces that. He's got a whole, if you're interested, he's got a whole spiel on his website and the behind the scenes about why he gives this name to Revan, the Revan Kist, the backstory to Revan. It's a foreign, maybe a German word. It means something important. I've forgotten what it is. Google it. It's on John Jackson Miller's website. It's interesting, I guess. We'll talk. We'll figure it out. Yeah, Revan's story. He's always cloaked because you can never see his face. Because
True,
you create your own character in the game.
That's a smart way of doing it.
One way around it. Yeah.
And the way that Revan finds his that mask that he's wearing, how that origin story came about. So John Jackson Miller will fill in the voids without you even realizing you needed them filled in.
Yeah. The backstory for Malak, I think we talked about it last week. Malak in the game is pretty mustache twirly, even though he probably can't grow a mustache under that big metal mask he wears in the video games. And in this, he's got a lot better backstory. You actually don't even know that he's Malak when you're introduced to him. He goes by the absolutely airtight alias of Alec. Never could have seen that one coming. So it's really interesting the way he's developed. And it's not like Malak is in every issue, which is actually, why it works for me. The video game characters are used few and far between, and when they are used, they absolutely steal the stage, and they really pop and have great roles. Both Karth and Alec kind of have these older brother relationships to Zane, which they've kind of like angel and devil on the shoulders to him, honestly, yeah. Which is fun. Admiral Saul Kareth, who I think is the ship captain from the beginning of KOTOR, who Karth was like an understudy to. He's in this quite a bit, maybe more than any other video game character. I'm trying to think of some other good ones, Freddy. Have I left any out?
I can't think of any at the moment. There's so many characters in this book. I actually need to go through and read how many times they're either mentioned or he creates a new one, because there's so many different types.
Skooma Joe is explaining the term that we've forgotten this week, Revankist. I probably should have Googled it, bad podcast host. But, it gives you a chance in the chat to show your stuff, as Skooma Joe is right here. He says he thinks it's Latin, and it means to reclaim what was taken. It works because Jedi Revan, his goal was to retake the planets that the Mandalorians had conquered. Which is pretty cool. And it's actually neat the way it develops in the series. Later on, you realize that he's dropped the long name and he's just taken Revan. You spend more time with Malak than you do Revan, which I actually also think was a good way to do it. But, honestly, even when asked about it, John Jackson Miller says, my goal was not to just develop video game characters. And the beginning of the series is taking place on Terrace. And even then, he felt like, well, this is too much. We don't need to just spend time going over the video game just for the sake of fan service. Let's develop our own unique characters, individual story. And by doing that, in my opinion, they really deepened those video game characters when they show up. I also, kind of gives you the propulsion to keep going, because you're like, who's going to show up next? And when's Malak coming back? Because he's going to be even madder next time, which is always fun. So we've talked about the KOTOR video games. How about your favorite Easter egg, Freddy? It could be from the video game. There's a number of Easter eggs as well that are from the Tales of the Jedi, the old 90s comics. What was that, episode 19 of Legends Look Back? I just totally made that up. I could be wrong. It may not be right at all. It might be. It would be amazing if it was. What's your favorite Easter egg from the series, Freddy? John Jackson Miller loves a good Easter egg.
He does. He really likes Easter eggs. And to be honest, I didn't catch... There's so many in KOTOR. I mean, it's a long series, right? It's 50 some comics. That's the number I'm going with, 50 some. And like for instance, when Alec came out, and you could just have no idea that it's Malak, and then of course when they're talking about Revan, when he's with the council, I'm not sure if you saw that part. They're talking about you got to stop dragging your Padawans into this, and et cetera, et cetera. I had no idea that was Revan at first. So it was pretty interesting to see all of that. Those
Yeah.
are the ones that jumped out at me the most.
Yeah, the first appearance of Revan, I think it's one of the more highly sought after issues from this series. First time that he shows up. Those first appearances are very big in the comics, and first appearance of Revan in the comics, even though like he's not in the mask, he's not wearing the iconic armor. It's still a really fun way to incorporate him into the series. I think my favorite Easter egg, there's a lot of really good ones, was toward the end of the series. You end up getting more of Jarael's backstory explored, and you find out. And I don't want to spoil it. We spoiled it last episode. We haven't given a spoiler warning this episode, so I'll say this much about her backstory. It's related in some sort to the Jedi Master Arca from the 90s Tales of the Jedi comics. So the way that it incorporates his story, and he's actually in the comic for a few panels, maybe a few pages, was super fun for me because I had no idea that this tied in so closely to that series. Which was pretty rewarding. How do you think that was handled, the Tales of the Jedi connection?
That's pretty cool, man. There's so many connections in this, and just seeing you type or talk about it, I totally forgot that it even existed, to be honest.
Yeah. I actually think that as far as like a favorite story arc in terms of where the story went, it has a lot of different, 4 or 5 issue. We're gonna hit all of this, but there are some overarching villains. Obviously, Lucian Dre would be the main villain. Was probably the villain for 40-ish issues. Overall, the way that this will go story to story, I think in a lot of ways the story arcs at the end were stronger for me than at the beginning. He just was forced, I think, into some more creative exploration after he had tied up the plot with the main villains. So, Freddy, what's your favorite story arc out of all the territory where this went? And I mean, you've got all kinds of crazy stuff. You've got like the mission where they go and encounter Zane's dad on the banking planet, and they're kidnapped by the Mumo brothers. There's, like I said, the story where they go to perform a heist and end up actually finding themselves accidentally in the middle of a Mandalorian invasion. For real this time. You've got the story arc with Lucian Dre's backstory and the servant Hazen, who was evil all along. There's a lot of crazy stuff in this. Favorite Easter egg? No. What am I on now? Favorite story arc, Freddy. Which one hit the best for you?
Yeah, I really like. Believe it or not, I liked Vector a lot. I feel like, first of all, for those who haven't read the series, Vector was. I think it was spanned over several comics, several platforms, right, Jared? It was.
Yeah, it was. Go ahead.
It was. Obviously this comic, and then there's a few more. I think Jared's gonna look those up right now. But the fact that we saw the Muir Talisman, and the Rackles, and of course Zane's handling of the whole situation, which was, why are you killing them? They're people, right? And seeing that whole thing go down, I have to admit though. Vector's art was not my favorite. It was a little too cartoonish for me, but I was more encapsulated with the story that was happening and the history of the Muir Talisman. That definitely was okay. So Skooma Joe just wrote it out. There's 4 different comics. There was KOTOR, Dark Time, Rebellion, and Legacy. Dark Times and Legacy. Yeah,
well, I actually read the Legacy story arc for this, maybe 8 years ago. Yeah. So liked the way that it tied into that. So 8 years later, now have read 9 years maybe. Have gone back and read the Ninth Field Republic story arc from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait another decade and read the story arc in Dark Times, and then when I'm 50, I'll finally get around to finding out, what happened right there in the middle in Rebellion. And then at 60, I'll read the whole thing. No, I don't know. Okay. Probably sooner than that, but it's fun the way that this kicks off. The way that this is able to ripple through all these different ongoing stories, because obviously you're not going to have the same kind of crossover that you would with the Marvel superhero series, right? You're not just going to get all the characters into one comic. How do you don't really have time travel established in the same way that you can have in like a Marvel comic. You've got to have a more creative way of doing it. This does it pretty fun. You've got like this ancient Sith talisman. If there's one thing that Legends does well, it's ancient Sith talismans, isn't it? Yeah. Holocrons galore.
Yeah, how do I get myself a couple of those talismans?
Well, spoiler alert, you better have some rat ghoul serum on hand. I think for me, my favorite story arc is when you finally get the reveal regarding Lucien Dre's backstory and Hazen, this it's like family servant who's been lurking in the shadows, waiting for his moment to get revenge. I kind of compare it to, and I'm sorry to mention Harry Potter on my Star Wars podcast. All right, I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan. I listened to the audiobooks once. That's enough for me. I'll watch the movies if my wife is interested after begging her to watch Star Wars first. All right. But there is this plot point in Harry Potter where one of the characters, Snape maybe, is bullied by Harry's dad in school. And so then he becomes a villain-ish. It's messy. It's Harry Potter. All right. He basically goes down this dark path because he was bullied by somebody who you thought was heroic. And it's quite similar in this because Lucien Dre's dad is supposed to be this great, heroic, legendary Jedi. And then you find out he was basically peeing on Hazen. He'd been just kind of treating him as like this failure of a Jedi who was never able to cut it on the same level as the cool kids, and who then ends up, like lurking in the shadows and joining the Sith. And he's got this cool spread where he's got this laser red eye and dual lightsabers and robo legs, and there's a big explosion. It's pretty cool. What do you think about Hazen's reveal, Freddy? Out of all the villains in this, how did he stack up for you? I loved that story.
Yeah, it was a good story. Actually, that was a really good one. It really took you back into what Zane could have been. Right, he could have been after all the failures, being rejected, being blamed on for the deaths of the Padawans. That would drive me crazy. But he held it together, and he's like, nope, I'm innocent. I'm gonna prove it. I'm still a good guy. And the fact that you can get those two stories, right? You see the failed Sith and the failed Jedi. You can see, well, first of all, I don't know how anybody thought that he was not evil.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, who's the shadowy guy who is totally never saying anything nice to anybody, and clearly is like scheming over there in the corner. Somebody should check on him.
Red eyeball.
Yeah, who's the guy with the hood up and the red eyeball who's like always emitting some kind of an ominous smoke from his torso coming out from underneath those robes? Yeah, that's a good point, Freddie. I'll have to reread it and see just how much Hazen stands out. I mean, I was a little bit surprised, honestly. Maybe because like the story had pivoted away from him for so long, and then I took like a 3-month break from reading the series before I came back to it. When he finally showed up again, I was like, oh yeah, this guy. He's pretty scary. He throws off the hood like an evil Obi-Wan Kenobi. Instead of saying hello there, he's like, it's time to die, fools, and is ready to blow up the estate. I also really like the Flashpoint story arcs I mentioned earlier. What else? We've talked about favorite cover art, panel of art, how it ties into the Easter eggs. Okay, this is pretty meaty. Let's talk about this, Freddie. How does this tie into the Mandalorian War? This was ultimately, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, my main impetus for reading this series. I had written reading guides for the site about, hey, what Star Wars book should you read if you like Mandalorians? Right about the time Mandalorian came out, a year and a half ago, a little over a year ago. I was putting that one together. This series I was reading, hey, it takes place during the Mandalorian Wars. I was like, all right, I'll put that on the reading guide, and I'll go ahead and read it soon, just to like make sure that it actually does. I'm not just putting up bogus stuff on the site, because hey, we fact check on utini.com. Or at least I do. I don't know about everybody else. I read this just to make sure I understood what it was showing us about the Mandalorian Wars, and then found myself going on a very different kind of adventure. Freddie, we talked about the Mandalorian Wars in our episode about the Revan novel, how it kind of retcons why Mandalore went to war against the Republic in the first place. We talked about the Mandalorians in our the Republic Commando series, which I think Meg was on more episodes than you were, which was fun way back in the day. And we also talked about the Mandalorians in our coverage of the Tales of the Jedi series, though in that, there's not a ton of depth other than the fact that they're this awesome warrior race, and then Exar Kun goes and duels them and then makes them subservient to him. Then he's got an awesome, heavy metal armor to go against the Jedi with. How did this series deepen the conflict of the Mandalorian Wars for you?
Well, the interesting thing is I like Mandalorian culture in terms of they're very similar to like Spartans in real history, at least how they're visualized, right? The very warrior-like, fighting from a young age, etc. But coming from an original trilogy, I'll never forget when I first read these, and you see Boba Fett, that he, of course that's been retconned now. Mandalorian. You get a better idea of what Mandalorians were, right? I feel like they're very mythical, not mystical. I don't know which word I'm going for.
It's just, it's kind of thrown together, make it work. That's what I do.
Yeah, mystical.
Well, whatever you mean. People can just, they read whatever intention they want.
Yeah. So, they're an old warrior race that, and coming back into what I love about KOTOR is that it takes you into the times of what it was like for Jedi to get married, to have wealth, to have popularity and status and attachment before those rules were really set, right? And then you have Mandalorians who are just it's funny because when we see it in our current state, right? Mandalorians were raised in a certain way. They're very traditional, but it almost seems like here, it's like they conquer a planet and you're a Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, if you want to be. It's like, be a Mandalorian or die, right?
Yeah, either way. And looking at their armor, I'd probably be like, well, I guess I'm one of you guys now. And you see their purpose, right, which is to conquer, to fight, to make everyone a Mandalorian. And it's kind of flawed logic because you start getting people who are from a different world who are just being a Mandalorian to survive, right? And that's where I think a lot of that ideology was flawed.
Yeah, they're probably not going to fight as zealously if they were subjugated into it.
Exactly. But the comics themselves really painted an interesting image of, especially the way that our main character reacts with them, which is, he's friends with everybody, even Mandalore.
Right.
Or Cassius Fett, right?
Cassius Fett?
Cassius Fett.
Cassius Flap. A Star Wars story.
Flap. He's the clone of Cassius Fett, and he does not wear clothes. And he's always gooey. Sorry, Meg.
Oh, no. Hey, that's a Legends fact. Clones are gooey.
Clones are gooey. Heard it here first. But it's time to die, fools. Yeah, Skooma Joe in the chat. It's funny.
The way that this does deepen the Mandalorian Wars, you're making a good point that, sometimes they subjugate people who don't necessarily want to be Mandalorians. On the other hand, I found that this made the Mandalorians really sympathetic because the series does spend so much time with, like, evil, corrupt Republic officers. You've got some Republic generals who are just absolutely terrible to Zane. Like, they don't want to hear his explanation for why he's not, as evil as everybody thinks he is, and why he didn't kill the Padawans. They're like, no, you're a criminal. We're going to arrest you and blow up the planet in the process because there's Mandys down there, son. And so you spend some time with Republic soldiers, Republic generals who are absolutely corrupt and have no redeeming qualities at all. But then you also will spend some time with honorable Mandalorians. You'll also spend some time with some Mandalorians who are just, they're just brutes who just want to kill and snap necks and put their armor on, And so you get kind of both sides of the conflict. And Zane is kind of caught in the middle. Sometimes he's fighting with the Mandalorians, whether by choice or by accident. Other times he's fighting, with the Republic, trying to take down the Mandalorians, but really he's not in it for their war. He's got his own agenda. I also liked the fact that we got to spend some time with Roland, who's a Mandalorian who is questioning the fact why they're even in this war in the first place, which eventually retcons really well into where this goes in Knights of the Old Republic, and then eventually, the Revan novel and the SWTOR game, for the fact that you kind of learn, I guess it's a retcon that Mandalore had been, brain manipulated by the Emperor in the first place into even going to war against the Republic in order to soften up the Republic. Isn't that like the final retcon on how it all happens?
Yeah, they try to make the Mandalorians. There's such a big following for the Mandalorians, so they want to paint them a little bit better than.
Okay, maybe so.
Yeah.
There's quite a few retcons along the way. Hey, it's Legends. I don't mind a retcon.
Yeah,
no big
whatever.
deal. Retcons come with the territory for sure. So Skooma Joe says he headcanoned out everything from the MMO as far as it was concerning the Old Republic, the Mandalorians. That's fine. You're welcome to do that too. It's Legends. It's all made up. It's your universe. Let it be whatever you want it to be. So ultimately, this really does give us some fun, different perspectives on the Mandalorian War. Oh, another thing to point out there is you also get some time with a Mandalorian who's not even like a warrior, Demogorgon. He's more focused on like mad science, which is kind of fun. He's like rather spend time with test tubes than vibroblades, which normally with Mandalorians, correct me if I'm wrong, Freddy, they're normally like linebackers, right? They just want to hit somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. My favorite part, speaking of Mandalorians, is when Mandalore, the Ultimate, is on, what's that planet called? When he calls everybody, he's calling the Republic, the Jedi, the Mandalorians, to come buy that weapon.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, and Mandalore just
the
sits there with
Arcanian
his,
legacy?
Yeah. And Mandalore, the Ultimate, just sits there with his weapon, and he's like, Dallin, I made this out of your old ship that I exploded. Like, how crazy is that?
Oh yeah, Miller was really able to tap into like the heart of what made the Mandalorian so lovable, and it's like a goofy lovable. It's like in the TV show when he says, "I'm a Mandalorian, guns are my religion." It's like they definitely get it. Like that's kind of the fun, and it's kind of like the eye-rolly reason that we liked him in the first place. That's a good answer, Freddie. As far as my favorite piece of like, as we wind down the episode here and wind down our coverage of this whole series, which has absolutely been a blast. Anything else fun that we've left out? Just little nuggets that along the way you wanted to point out, haven't had a good way to slot them into the episodes so far. I want to say one of the things that John Jackson Miller has done the best is his world building. He'll be able to really camp us out on a planet for 5 or 6 issues, build out the culture of that planet. He does a good job at making ships feel very lived in, and he's really good at naming characters and ships in particular. Did you notice that the 2 ships that our heroes basically camp out on in this series, do you remember the names of the ships? They're amazing. I love these.
Yeah, you've got the first one, which was they didn't even know was a ship. That was the Last Resort, right?
Yeah, I love that. It's like, hey, it's the end of the issue. There's nowhere for us to run from the bad guys. Oh, welcome to our ship. Boom, it takes off. It's called The Last Resort as they look at the camera, roll credits. Yeah. It's a perfect name. Yeah. And then the second ship is called The Hot Prospect. Which I just found so incredibly comical. That ship itself is like this what do we even call it? It's like a sail barge.
It looks like a platform, like an oil rig platform.
Yeah, right.
So bulky.
At one point, they end up spinning it to deflect the bad guys, like reverse spinning different parts of the ship. It's really goofy and wacky, and yet it works. Somehow it works. There's even like a full diagram of it, I think, in the handbook, Knights of the Old Republic handbook. I think they've got like a whole cross-section of these ships, which is so over the top in an excellent Legends way. Did you have an answer for this one? Anything else from the series that we've left out that you want to give a shout-out to?
Well, Skooma Joe just pointed out that the Mumo Brothers ship, I believe, was called, what was that, the Mumo Willowa?
Hey, you said it. I'm not going to take a stab at that one. I've forgotten what their ship is like. I'll have to look it up. Oh, man.
Based on what you said, for those of you who have not read this comic series, the second you start diving into it, you're going to want to finish it. And I recommend buying the omnibus because you're going to there's a lot of world building going on, and there's a lot of content that John Jackson Miller creates. And he doesn't create everything, but he takes from what others have done and builds upon that. And there's new the ships that he calls out in here, the worlds that he creates or expands, the storylines that he creates or expands, right? It's always a creation or an expansion of something that's already existing. And it really lends to Star Wars history, in my opinion. And it often gets looked passed upon because it's a comic book and not too many people read comics. But this one, when that omnibus comes out, I really hope that a lot of our listeners grab it and just dive in because it's a lot of fun. And there's so much good content. Every single page has good content. Yeah,
and once you've done that, you've got 3 hours of content here to binge through now that you've gotten caught up and can get past that spoiler gate. Yeah, that's true. I think for a lot of people, they'll hear like, oh, cool, it gets into the Mandalorian War. And it's like, Some. Okay, but don't set your expectations too high. It's really mostly about like a failed Padawan and his snaggletooth crook buddy. And you're like, oh, okay, well, what about KOTOR? Like, it ties into video games, right? And your answer's like, some. But don't get too excited. It's really, Revan's not on every page. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, what's it about? Well, it's like the main
surviving.
Yeah, the main character's number one skill is the fact that he's unlucky and yet also kind of lucky. It just depends. And you're like, right, really? That's what this is about? For me, it like really captures that vibe. Even though it's the Old Republic, it really captures the vibe of A New Hope. It's like it specifically, I don't remember if I've said this before, and if I have, pretend like you haven't and just laugh anyway. It really captures the heart of that scene where Han Solo is in the Death Star and he's like trying to be a hero, and then he turns the corner and finds the whole hangar full of
battalion.
An entire battalion of stormtroopers, and he just makes this face and runs away and just like does this amazing yell. Harrison Ford screams like "ah!" as he runs away, and Chewie, they come right back down the hallway. Like that moment is this entire 56 issue series in a nutshell for me. Does you think that about covers it? Yeah. Well, this has been an absolutely wild ride. There will be a little bit of a tease here, a little bit more KOTOR coverage eventually, before too long on the show. We won't tease too much about that. Some fun stuff planned, headed your way, listeners. In the meantime, we're going to be getting into some fun side episodes. We're going to talk about Legends lightsabers soon. And then our next main roundtable, if you want to get caught up on your reading and get up to snuff in order to hang in with us on our full roundtable coverage. Pretty soon, we're going to have our buddy Nathan from the Utini team over from the YouTube channel joining us to talk about the absolutely classic Legends trilogy, the origin of the Sun Crusher and Kip Duran. It's got space spiders on Kessel and Luke's Jedi Academy on Yavin 4, which I love me some Legends Yavin 4. I don't know about you. We were talking about the Jedi Academy trilogy by Kevin J. Anderson. So that does it for this week. Thanks for joining us for Legends Look Back. Thanks especially once again to Meg, our producer, our social media manager, our all-around Twitch savior, for being honest. We were struggling with this until she joined, and now it's just a ton of fun. Thank you also to Nathan, our video editor. We drop him the file, and he gets it over there on the tubes for you. Thanks especially to our incredible patrons, to many of you who've been with us live in the chat tonight. You, of course, can get in on the behind the scenes of Utini just like they have, with access to all kinds of bonus shows. We've got Cafes, we've got Bounty Hunt, we've got Star Wars Archives, Lightspeed Skipping. Hopefully that's coming back soon. Who knows? We'd love to open up to a random page of a random Star Wars book and have a good old time on a Saturday afternoon one of these days. Also, now that we're live on Twitch, you can help us out by subscribing, either the old-fashioned way or with Prime Gaming. And remember, we want your questions. You can email us an audio file at legendslookback@utini.com. You can send us a message in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. You can leave a comment on this episode on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter and tweet at us now at our new Twitch, what do we call that? New Twitter. How come Twitter and Twitch have such similar names? Tweet at us at our new Twitter account, where people tweet, at Legends Look Back. Or you can contact me. I'm at Jared Q. Mays. Freddy?
At Wake Up Freddy.
And Meg is?
At Meg Dowell.
Excellent. If you're looking to buy some of these books, want to help support the show, click the book on Utini, click the Amazon link in the profile. We'll get a few cents to help keep the lights on. And another way to help us out and show your love for Utini is by grabbing some swag over there on utini.com/merch, which, hey, we've always got some new fun stuff headed your way. I think we've even got some fun stuff that dropped today, if I'm not mistaken. So if that's not enough of a tease for you, I'm not sure what is. So head on over there and check that out. Also, if you've read any of these books, remember to head on over to utini.com and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. How many stars do you give to all 56 issues of Knights of the Old Republic? We got to rank those things, get those scores up on the site. Remember, also, keep the Utini fan code, please, and be a force for positivity in the fandom. May the Force be with you.
This is a Utini broadcast.